So thanks everyone for joining today's session. So in today's session, I will be touching upon the Sitecore Headless Services, how we can utilize that to do the digital transformation. Suppose if you are building a greenfield project or you are on the upgrade, so what are the things we need to take care? So I will be touching upon those important points. Coming to the agenda. So agenda of today's session is that I will be covering what is Sitecore Headless Services. So I will be explaining about a headless CMS as well as what are the product offering from the Sitecore which can be utilized to build up a headless application and why we move to the Sitecore Headless and feature comparison. So here I will be giving you the example of a different components which are part of the Sitecore Headless implementation and how we can provision or what are the options are present for the provisioning those items. And also I will be covering some architecture diagram where I will be explaining about headless and the ASP.NET MVC plus the experience edge. And at the last I will be covering what are the things we need to remember when we are proposing the Sitecore Headless as a CMS implementation. So this is about me, myself, Amit, and I'm having around a 19 plus years of experience. And you can reach out to me any of the social channel or the via LinkedIn. So now I will be moving to the what is Sitecore Headless Services. So before moving that, I will be giving you the information on what is the traditional CMS and what is the headless CMS.
Excuse me, Amit. We still see the cover. Have you changed the slides?
Oh my God. Sorry, wait a minute.
Okay,
Yeah, now it's fine.
now I can see. Yes,
Oh, sorry for that. So,
that's okay.
so you most of the people have worked on the Sitecore platform, and we mostly worked on the ASP.NET MVC. So the major difference between a traditional CMS as well as the headless CMS is that in the traditional CMS, our backend UI means the CMS platform as well as the code and plugin and the front end all are tightly coupled with each other. So if you need to deploy anything, you will be deploying all things together because you will be writing a CHTML, C# code, and all the CSS styling will be deploying to your CD boxes. So when you are moving to the headless CMS, so you will be not deploying a code within a your CMS box from where you are getting the content. You can separately build your front-end application irrespective of technology. You are not bound to use any of the CMS technology in which that CMS have been created. So you can select any of the tech stacks which you are more proficient or your organization is aligned, and there all the data will be coming in the form of a API. So that is the major difference between a traditional as well as the headless, and also it will help you to scale. You do not need to scale complete box of your CMS. You can scale only the front end whenever you are having the load. So that is also a major benefit when you are moving to the headless CMS. So this diagram, if you have worked on the Sitecore headless framework, so you are aware about that. So if you are on the XP or the XM and you are planning to use the Sitecore Headless Services, so you need to install the Sitecore Headless Services module. So Sitecore Headless Framework introduced from the Sitecore 9.x. At that time, till the Sitecore 10, it was used to say the Sitecore JavaScript services. Now it's being called a Sitecore Headless Services module. So if you are starting with the new implementation of Sitecore Headless, so it's better to start with the Sitecore 10.x implement version so that you will be utilizing the updated Sitecore Headless Services module. So generally in this, what is happening, we are having a two types of support. One is for the .NET Core rendering SDK support so that you can build up a your application in the .NET Core if you are more on aligned with the Microsoft tech stack. And if you are more front-end heavy, then you can utilize the JavaScript rendering SDK. So in this, you can utilize the Next.js, React, Vue, or Angular. But the main support or alignment of Sitecore is toward the Next.js because Sitecore is having a Sitecore SaaS platform XM Cloud, and all the new features are coming in the Next.js. So if you are starting with the headless, so go with the Sitecore Next.js. So here you will be having a rendering engine, media handler, GraphQL layout service. So with the help of these sub modules, when you are writing a application in the Sitecore Headless framework, then the data will be exposed in the form of a layout service endpoint or a GraphQL service endpoint. So they are the dedicated endpoints are there when you are utilizing the Sitecore GSS SDK or .NET Core SDK. So the front-end application internally making a call to your Sitecore system, like if you are on the XP or XM, then it will be on your CD boxes. But if you are utilizing the Experience Edge, then it will be from the Experience Edge endpoints are there. So you will be getting a data in the form of a JSON. So in traditional also you will be having a item API and those type of things, but those are not providing you the presentation layer of your application. So presentation layer means that inside core when you are creating any type of a page template, then you will be generally adding a placeholder into that, and on placeholder you will be adding a component, and in component most of the times you are having a data source. So those details you cannot get from your item service, which is available earlier. So with the help of a layout service or a headless services module, you will be getting a presentation layer of your page so that you can build up your application, front-end application in any of the tech stack. So now moving to the next section, what are the available product from the Sitecore which you can utilize to build up the headless application. So if you are on the Sitecore Experience Platform or Experience Manager, you can utilize Sitecore Headless Services module, and these two platform either you can host on the your preferred choice of clouds environment or you can do the self-hosting. So some regions are using the private data center. So in those cases, you can host by yourself. So in those two product topologies also, you can install the Sitecore Headless Services module and you can use the Sitecore as a headless content delivery. And other is that you can go with the Sitecore hosted services or a SaaS offering like a XM Cloud, XM Cloud Plus, or a Content Hub 1. So in XM Cloud offering from the Sitecore, you will be getting a Sitecore XM based CMS instance, and as well as you will be getting a editing host. And for a front end hosting, you need to buy a separate license for any of your hosting provider which you wanted to choose, like a Vercel or Azure or anyone. So you need to pay extra license cost for that also. And in the XM Cloud also, you will be getting a subset of a your CDP and personalize so that you can create a personalized experience there also. But if you are going with the XM Cloud Plus, so uh, so there also you will be getting a XM Cloud offering plus you will be getting a Sitecore Search, CDP, personalized Sitecore Connect. All are offered as a bundle to you. So you do not need to buy a separate license. All the offering will be clubbed together. And there is a lightweight CMS. You can say that a Content Hub 1. So there you will be not getting a any presentation layer to design your page. It's a simple template. You can create it and you can add a data like we used to add in the content editor. That way it will be providing. So this lightweight content hub or a CMS is very useful when you are having a micro sites which are having a very less pages, but you are having a numbers of microsites for any campaign that you used to create it, or you are creating a separate product catalog site. So in those cases, this is very useful headless content delivery from the Sitecore. But all these things are managed and hosted by the Sitecore, so you do not need to provision on the infrastructure. So these are the different ways you can utilize Sitecore as a content delivery. And as I was explaining, like you can also have a OData item service and a RESTful API. So, but there you will be not getting a page layout data, so that you can build up the front end. But in my past, I have aware about some organization have built up their own API layer or a proxy layer on top of a site core, which will fetch all the presentation data and it will share you via a API endpoints. But you can also implement that, but you need to spend a lot of effort to build up that, because you need to host the API layer, you need to write a custom code. So a lot of effort is required into it. So now I will be moving to the next section where I will be explaining why move to Sitecore Headless. So it's not like that when you are building up a Sitecore as a headless application. So you do not go straight away and explain everyone that I am going to utilize that. Why? Because you need to showcase some benefit return of investment with those initiatives which you are going to take, right? Otherwise, no one will be ready to go with the Sitecore headless if they are able to work in the Sitecore uh, ASP.NET MVC. Why they will move to the headless? So we need to showcase some extra benefits which are beneficial. So I will be covering those high level points. Flexibility and decoupling. So flexibility means that you will be getting a flexibility in terms of what type of tech stacks you want to select, that you can select it to build up your front end application. Decoupling, your front end and back end are decoupled. You do not need to wait to do the changes in your front end, because your back end will be serving only the content, and all the business logic and everything will be covered via API layer, and the front end will be via your client side scripting code base or a .NET Core SDK. So with that way, you can showcase that you will be not having any dependency while you are moving to the headless CMS. Developer freedom, you can select any tech stack which you want to use, or if you are planning to train your team member also to motivate them, then you can move towards a any client side scripting framework, or your organization is having a technical tech stack which you need to use. Some clients are not using the .NET 4.8, they wanted to move to .NET Core, or the other client has scripting framework. So in those cases, either you will change the CMS or you will select a product which is matching with your organization technical requirement. Future proofing means that when you are moving to the Sitecore headless, you are creating a future proof application because you are going headless. So if in near future down the line 1 or 2 year, if they wanted to change the UI or they need to introduce a different channels like a mobile application or a kiosk, right, offline data, so all these can be taken care with the help of a headless framework. Business requirement. So in some organization they are using the Sitecore as a platform to build up a different catalog sites, right? And they are going to the market and selling those catalog sites to a different uh, organization. So these catalog sites are serving some sort of a business requirement. So in those cases, there may be a chances that your business users are very impressed with the competitor websites where they are having very interactive UI, as well as they are having very catchy front end or a forms which they wanted to utilize. But if you are on the ASP.NET MVC to build up a very flashy UI, you need to spend a lot of time because you will be not getting a out of the box or a any packages to utilize anything. So you need to build up anything from the scratch. So in those cases, you can also showcase if we are moving to headless, then it will be beneficial for us. Multi-channel delivery, which I covered, like you can build up a application for a PWA application, mobile or kiosk, any channel you can deliver the content. Scalability and performance, you can target a Google Lighthouse ratings also with the help of a your front-end framework, as well as you do not need to scale your whole infrastructure in terms of a content delivery to scale your application. You can just increase the head application where you have deployed, and rest of the things you do not need to scale. So in those cases, it will be easy, or you can save the cost also. Project requirement, for example, you are having a requirements, or you are having a technical or a backlog, or technical depths are there, or you are seeing a lot of microsites which are going to be in your platform or your environment down the line in 2 or 3 months or a 6 months. So in those cases, if you are having a very heavy implementation, then it will be difficult to onboard those. So in those cases, if you are building up a headless, then you can spin up a different UI, or you can have a separate code base and deploy that into the different your web app, and you can onboard the website very fast, because you will be also getting headless XXA with that, which will support the multi-site uh, implementation. And last is there technical requirement. So suppose you are having a upgrade pending on your current Sitecore instance, and you are having a version which you are using it, and the support is going to sunset, or you are having a security patches which you have to install, but if you will install, maybe it will break, or there are the some features which you wanted to utilize but you can't utilize because you are on the older version. So in those cases, it's better to move to the headless implementation instead of using the traditional. So in those cases, what flavor you can present is that you can install both MVC and the headless in the same instance, and you can start with the MVP, not the big bang. So with that flavor, you can showcase the benefit to the your business user or the product owner to get a sign off to go with the Sitecore Headless. So now I'm moving to the feature comparison between XP, XM, and XMC. So first I am covering the hosting of the CM, means content management system. So when you are going with the XM and XP product, so as I said that you need to host your own CM instance, like either in the cloud or you can do the self-hosting. So all the infrastructure provisioning maintenance will be taken care by yourself only. But when you are moving with the XM Cloud or the XM Cloud Plus, so CM instance provisioning will be taken care by the Sitecore. You do not need to do any upgrade or anything because it's a SaaS platform. So there you can save the cost if you are going to the XM Cloud or XM Cloud Plus. In terms of a content delivery, here also you need to host your own content delivery server, and when you are going to access the Sitecore headless content, then you can get a GraphQL endpoint, you can get a Edge GraphQL endpoint and a layout service endpoint. So there is a difference between a GraphQL endpoints and a Edge GraphQL endpoints. So when the from the Sitecore 9, when this headless framework comes into the picture, at that time there is a uh, simple GraphQL schema was there. So there is a GraphQL endpoint for, and from the Sitecore 10 onwards, Sitecore have introduced the Edge GraphQL endpoints. Those are coming like a slash API slash Edge, and that is having a different schema. So for example, if you are upgrading from 9 to 10 and you wanted to make your application XM Cloud compatible, then you need to use the Edge GraphQL endpoints. In those cases, whatever the queries you have wrote earlier in the GraphQL schema, that you have to change with the Edge GraphQL. And also one more thing is that here you need to get directly data from a CD server. You are not accessing a data from the CM, because once you are publishing the content from CM, it will reach the CD, and the CD will be providing you the headless content delivery endpoint either in the Edge GraphQL or a layout service endpoint. But when you are with the XM Cloud and the XM Cloud Press, you will be accessing a data from a Experience Edge CDN. So that is also set up and maintained by the Sitecore. You do not need to do any provisioning or a maintenance for the content delivery. So here you will be getting a Edge GraphQL endpoint, because XM Cloud only support the Edge GraphQL endpoint. It not support the layout service endpoint. So suppose if in near future you are planning to move to the XM Cloud, then you have to utilize the Edge GraphQL endpoint so that your schema will be similar to the XM Cloud. So now moving to the front-end app. So earlier when we were working in the traditional Sitecore CMS like ASP.NET MVC, we will be having a content delivery where we will be deploying our front-end application. But in the headless, back-end and front-end are separated. That's why you will be deploying your front-end code into the separate web app, and that is called a rendering host. So when you are working with the XM and XP, some clients, to save the cost, they are installing the node server in the CD box itself. But they are very uh, tricky options are there. You need to do the port opening for your content delivery. So it's better to always go with the separate web app or self-hosted or Azure VM you can utilize to host your front end, or you can go with the Azure web app, or you can utilize the Vercel also to do the your front end deployment. And you can utilize also a Linux-based OS web app which you can provision in the Azure. You can go with that also. In case of a XM Cloud and XM Cloud Plus, the preferred partner for hosting a front-end application is Vercel, because you will be getting a out-of-the-box connector to push your code repo from GitHub or Azure to your Vercel hosting or a web app. So you do not need to write a pipeline code. And there are other benefits are there also, like a faster build times and the static site generations. Those things are very easy when you are moving with the Vercel, when you are with the XM Cloud. So it's better to go with the Vercel only, but you need to pay extra hosting cost with that. But when you are going with the XM Cloud plus Vercel, then you will be getting some discount also from the Vercel team or a product. Now moving to the experience editor support, because when you are working with the traditional MVC, when you are opening the page in the experience editor, then you will be using the CM instance itself to render your page, right? But when you are working with the headless, because CM is not having anything, because it's not a integrated element, it's a disconnected or a connected approach. Now we are using it. So you are not deploying any of the code base of your front end in the CM box. It will be separated. So in those cases, you required a one app similar to the rendering host, which will be utilized by your CM instance to render the page in Experience Editor. So that's why we used to call as a editing rendering host. So as I said that you can go with your self-hosting or you can utilize Vercel. It's your choice. It's similar to that rendering host, but the major change here is that you will be not getting accessing a data from a edge or a CD node. You will be accessing a data from a CM, because it's a unpublished data or data which is not published. You will be using that in the experience editor. So when you are going with the XM Cloud or a XM Cloud Plus, you do not need to provision the editing host. It will be hosted by the Sitecore for you. So you do not need to do any provisioning. And also this editing host will be not accessible for the public use. Means it will be just you cannot able to access that outside as a public application. You will be able only to access in your CMS itself. So there is a one thing you need to take care when you are planning to use XM and XP and you are hosting on the Vercel, because some clients are having a security requirement that if they are having a lower environment, they don't want their web app access out in the public domain. So in those cases, if you will try to use the Vercel, so you know that when you are creating a website or a deploying application in Vercel, so by default it's publicly available, and you can apply the restrictions also or a security also by enabling the login. But in those cases, you need to enter the user ID and password to access your Vercel web app. But when you are using Vercel for editing rendering host and you have enabled the user ID and password based access in a Vercel, then if you will try to open your XM or XP pages in the experience editor, it won't work. You will get a 404 forbidden error. Why? Because when you are opening a page in a from CM in experience editor, CM will be making a post request to your uh, editing rendering host. So in those cases, if security is enabled, you will be not able to access the Vercel web app. So in those cases or in those use cases, the best part is that you can host in Azure or any of your VM. Then you can do the IP restriction so that it will be not available outside of the in a public. It will be not available. So that is the main thing you have to take care if you are receiving a requirement like this. Now moving to the search functionality for a CM. So when you are working with XMXP, you are aware that you have to host your own Solar instance, or you can use the uh, search stacks to implement the search in for the CM instance. But when you are going with the XM Cloud or XM Cloud Plus, you will be getting a instance by Sitecore itself. You do not need to host, but you cannot utilize that search instance or a search provider instance to implement a uh, end user search functionalities. So it will be just for the CM use. So it will be not publicly available to use it. And even you cannot install any of your, you can say that the custom indexes or those things, you cannot do that when you are moving to the XM cloud. For a end user or a site search functionality, you can go with the best option is that you can go with the Sitecore search, because you just need to crawl it and you will be able to get a benefit of Sitecore search SDK to build up a very interactive or a personalized search experience. But if you wanted to not go with any other composable, either you can host your own Solar instance or any other, then but you need to write some sort of a connector which will be pushing a data. But if you are on the XP or XM or XP, you will be having your separate Solar instance which will be utilized by a your CM instance. So it will work in the same manner. You do not need to do anything. But if you are going with XM Cloud or XMC Plus, you need to write your own connector or some sort of a webhook you have to utilize to push data to any other third-party system. If you are wanted to use any other application where the crawling is not there, and also when you are going with the Sitecore search, currently there is no live update type of connector is there. But if you want to publish data at a real time, like some, if you are having some legal data or you are having some medicine salt details which needs to be published, or if someone is updating that, right? So those details are important, informations are there. So you need to write a some sort of webhook. You need to write it so that when content author is publishing a data, then it will at a real time it will be published to the Sitecore search. So that you have to write by yourself. So in those cases, in any of the implementation, you have to provision or a buy a product from your side. It will be not coming with the XM Cloud or XM or XP. Analytics option. So if you are moving to the uh, XM, XP, XM Cloud, so it's better to move to the headless, or you can say that a headless CD, CDP or a personalized platform. So best option is Sitecore CDP and personalized. So you can ingest all your data or analytics data tracking to that CDP, because CDP is a data lake, so you can ingest a lot of amount of data or high volume of data. But if you are having a requirement to push historical data from your XM or XP to CDP, then you need to think about that, what's the size of your data and what are the available jobs are there which can be easily utilized to push data. So currently some data exchange and the Sitecore Connect, that is another SaaS platform. Those type of middlewares are there or proxies are there which you can utilize to push historical data. So these subscriptions also you have to buy it when you are moving to the headless. So that cost you need to include in your estimation. And if you want to get a more granular level feature comparison, so this is a very good article from a Fish Tanks which you can check later to get a more insight on the feature comparison. So now I'm moving to the some reference architectures. So here I have tried to explain about a mix of ASP.NET MVC as well as the Next.js. So in center, if you are seeing that there is a CM and CD. So here I am explaining that if you are going with the XM or XP based implementation, so you are seeing here two rendering hosts are there. One is for editing host, another is for the end user. Sitecore CMS is there, and also the content delivery server is there. So the content and the media file, when you are in the editing host, you will be getting from the CM. So if you are using the CD for a content delivery, then the rendering host for the end user application, you will be getting a content and media item from the CD node. And if you are deploying your ASP.NET MVC application to the CD box, there also you will be getting a media file from the CD itself. You can get it, or if you are using any sort of a CDN, from there also you can get it. And some clients are using the Experience Edge also with XM and XP based headless implementation. So in those cases, your data will be coming for your rendering host for the end user app will be coming from the Experience Edge as well as the media file. But if you are going with the Experience Edge, you need to take care about a circular dependency, and also you cannot upload a more than 50 MB of media files. If you are having those requirement or a large size of a media items, then you need to rely on the DAM to do that. So that is a restriction with that. And also, if you are using a Solar as a search provider, when you are using XM and XP, then you will be publishing data there. And if you are using any sort of a third-party provider like a search text or those things are there, then they are having their own connector. You can utilize that to publish data to that. And also in most of the headless implementation, you will be having a service layer which can be utilized to connect with any external system or internal system. And the search also can be exposed directly to your applications, or it can be via a service layer itself. So with this way, I have tried to explain about a different components which involved in the headless implementation, as well as how you can serve the data to your SP.NET MVC application, because you are not creating complete project or doing the transformation at a one shot. You will be moving via page by page or a component by component. In those cases, both the application should run from the same instance. So now this is a diagram which is explaining about how the Sitecore search can be utilized with XM and XP based implementation. So as I said that uh, you can crawl the data in a Sitecore search with the help of a website crawl. But if you are wanted a real-time data upgrade or a content upgrade into Sitecore search, so in XM and XP you can use the or create a custom publishing pipeline which will push the data to the Sitecore search platform via ingestion API. That you can utilize that, or you can utilize your own webhook to do that. So in those cases, you can utilize a Sitecore SaaS platform with your headless application, as well as you can utilize with your ASP.NET MVC application. So that integration also you can do that with the Sitecore search in XNM XP also. But when you are using the XM Cloud, so as I said that you cannot install any custom code base or a publishing pipeline override, and you cannot do that. So in those cases, you need to utilize the webhook. So you can utilize Sitecore Connect as a middleware where you can have a webhook. When the publishing is happening to the experience edge, you will be getting a data snapshot there, and from there you can push the data to Sitecore search. Suppose if you are not using the Sitecore search, you are wanted to write your own .NET based webhooks, then you can do that also and deploy to Azure or any other hosting provider. And from there also you can push with the help of a ingestion API. You can do that, and also you can publish the data to other service provider if you wanted to do that. So with this way, you can utilize the Sitecore search in a XM Cloud itself. But for real-time data update, you have to write some sort of a custom logic. This is a high-level reference architecture for Experience Edge. So Experience Edge you can utilize with Content Hub 1, Content Hub XM Cloud. You can utilize that. So in those cases, you will be authoring the content in content management system. But in your content management system, you need to install the Experience Edge connector. So instead of publishing to the web, it will be publishing to the Experience Edge, which is also a CDN enabled. So you do not need to do the provisioning of your servers in a different region. It's a CDN enabled, and also the caching is also there, and you can get the data in a form of a GraphQL endpoint in a JSON format, and then you can serve that data to any of the media channel of your choice. And this is a reference architecture for the editing rendering host, which I was explaining. So in Sitecore Headless architecture, when content author is trying to open the page in the content management role, then you are having this rendering engine, right? So that will make a call to the editing rendering host to the /GSS render, and there it will you are passing the route like a home page, about us page, which route you want to get a data. So that data will be generated at a front end, and then the body in a of that generated content will be passed back as a response to the your rendering engine. Then only it will be able to render in the your CMS. So as I was explaining, if you will enable the uh, password-based security in the editing rendering host, if you are on the Vercel, then this HTTP post request will fail. So in those cases, you need to host yourself, your own instance, or you can utilize the Azure Web App. So with this way, Sitecore editing rendering host will render the page in the experience editor. When you are in the XM Cloud Plus, you are having the pages that is the advanced editor, but that is a separate web app or a app from the Sitecore, and it will you do not need to host it. When you are opening the page in a pages editor, automatically call will be diverted to the different app from the Sitecore. So now coming to that important things to remember. So if you are proposing or doing the analysis of the requirement, or if you are proposing it, so it's better to analyze the business requirement that it is going to fulfill with your headless framework or not, right? It's not like that every application you are having or enterprise application you will propose for headless, there may be some requirement which will become a very tricky when you are moving to the headless. And also you need to take care of a technical requirement, like if you are having a for example IAM based authentication, and in earlier Sitecore you have using the IAM based authentication you are creating the Sitecore context and then you will be implementing the personalization. But when you are moving to headless, those things you need to write in the head application and you will be not getting a user context. So in those cases, you cannot go with the XM or XP. Then you need to utilize the CDP and then you need to write a whole layer of analytics and experience by your own again. So those things you have to take care when you are proposing, or you are having a large amount of historical data which you required in your headless implementation. But you will be not able to move, or there are some issues while moving it or transferring to the CDP. So those technical limitation you have to take care. Sitecore XP or XM as headless CMS. So either you need to use the existing environment or you need to do the different environment or instance to do the headless, which involve the cost, or you need to go with the complete uh, resolutioning of your existing ASP.NET MVC, how much time it is going to take, and is it really possible to complete everything in a timeline which is asked from the business user. So those things also you need to think of. And also the development flow. So in Sitecore headless, so most of the things are moved to the Docker, but some people are using the uh, front end heavy also, like they are not having a Sitecore instance in local, they are utilizing the API endpoint. So in those cases, you need to train your team into the Docker also if you are having a backend implementation. And also you need to train your front end team member in terms of how to use the connected mode to do the implementation. So those handshaking between different teams also you need to take care. Content management, like it's not a lift and shift of the content movement, like you are moving from XMXP to headless. So it's not like that you will be able to utilize complete data as is. So you need to do the transformation of data. You need to make your whole data compatible with the headless framework. So you need to inherit some um, Sitecore headless template into your old. So you need to think there also, if you are having a large amount of content, so it's worth to move whole data into headless, or it we need to do the reauthoring of the content again. As I covered, like content migration, so you need to put a effort of writing a custom scripting there. So Sitecore is providing a migration tool, but that will just move the content from your local or any XM XP to the XM cloud, but it will be not compatible with the XM cloud. So in those cases, you just need to write your own scripting on top of that to make it compatible. Analytics, as I said, that if large amount of XDB data, or you are having a more user profile or a profile cards are there, or you have implemented more custom use cases, like if you are having a travel industry type of website where you are giving a more personalized interface to the end user. So those things are there. Then you need to see if you are writing a web experiment or and web experience, how much time it's going to take, because you need to rewrite everything from the scratch and it will not be an easy task to do that. And coming to the end, so these are the some references articles are there which you can go through. So I will share the slide and you can get a insight from these reference articles also. So now I am open for the Q&A. If you guys have any question, you can feel free to put in the chat window. I will be happy to share or provide the answer.
Thanks, Amit. Thanks
Yeah.
so much. We do have a couple questions so far.
Mhm. Okay.
I will read them for you
No, I am
to
able to see
ease
in
the
the chat.
things.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm able to. So first is what's your thoughts on headless development stack? Would you recommend using React.js or Next.js? So as I said that it's better to go with the Next.js. So it's totally depend upon if you are wanted to get the uh, benefit of experience editor, right? Then and the more new feature like a multi-site add-on or those things are there. So those are currently coming in the Next.js. But I have worked with the organization where they have implemented totally Sitecore independent. You can say that the front end. So they are not using any XDK from the Sitecore. They are simply using plain vanilla React.js application or a Next.js application. And for the experience editor, what they are doing that either they are not interested or they have built up a separate web app for those things so that they are not dependent upon the Sitecore GSS SDK to upgrade anything in their front end, but for the experience editor, they are dependent on the Sitecore. ASP.NET Core becoming open source. Yeah, ASP.NET Core is there. So recently some work is going on the ASP.NET Core SDK. So you will be receiving a more update which you are having in the next year starter kit. So same way you will be getting some new features or improvement in the .NET Core SDK also. And it's a open source and you can go and contribute there also. Yes.
Yeah, I think there's one more before that, Amit,
Before that,
about earlier versions of Sitecore.
okay, okay, sorry.
Yeah. So are
Yes, yes,
early
yes, yes.
versions of Sitecore 10, like 10.0, 10.1, good enough to start a new headless implementation, or is it recommended to upgrade to 10.3 or 10.4 to
So
start?
I will recommend that to upgrade. Why? Because you will be getting a more feature improvement from 10 to 10.4. If you will check the release notes, some improvements are there. And also, the security patches are the main concern into that. But in terms of a headless, there are a GSS SDK. If you are utilizing the GSS SDK, so this GSS SDK is dependent on the Sitecore versions, right? So it's not like that
Mm-hmm.
every GSS SDK is compatible with the each version. So
Mm-hmm.
each version of JSS SDK is getting is some bug fixes and the improvement like multi-site add-on and those things are there, right? So
Mm-hmm.
if you are on the lower version of a site code, so you will be not able to get benefit of those things. Then you need to write your own code base in terms of routing handling in your application.
Mm-hmm.
And also the image rendering, right? So image is the main concern. So those things are improved in the uh, earlier means new version of a Sitecore GSS SDK.
All right, so it's advisable to upgrade,
Yes,
right?
yes.